My husband looked me dead in my eyes in front of 63 people at our daughter's 5th birthday party and demanded a DNA test. He was so sure I had cheated, so confident he was about to expose me as a liar, a cheater, a fraud. His mama was standing right behind him smiling like she had already won. And when those results came back, when the truth finally came out in front of everyone we knew, every family member, every church member, every neighbor on our street, he froze. His whole body went stiff. His face turned gray. And for the first time in 9 years, my husband had absolutely nothing to say. But I did. Because here's what Derek didn't know. While he was planning to humiliate me, I was building a case. While he was whispering with his mama about how our daughter didn't look like him, I was gathering receipts. While he thought he was setting a trap for me, I was setting one for him. And baby, when that trap snapped shut, it took everything he had. My name is Nadine Carter. I'm 34 years old. I'm a senior accountant at a Fortune 500 company. And this is the story of how my husband tried to destroy me in front of everyone I loved and ended up destroying himself instead. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to do something for me. If you've ever been doubted by someone who was supposed to love you, hit that like button right now. If you've ever been disrespected by a man who wasn't half the person you are, subscribe to this channel. And drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story reaches. I want to know how many women need to hear this. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's not just my story. It might be yours too. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Back to before I knew my husband was living a double life. Back to when I still believed that love was enough. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. But justice was more than enough. And I got every single drop of it. Let me tell you about my life 6 months before that party. The life everyone thought was perfect. Every morning my alarm went off at 5:30. Not because I wanted to wake up that early, but because I had to. I had a household to run, a child to raise, and a husband who acted like sleeping until noon was his God-given right. I would drag myself out of bed still exhausted from the day before and start the routine. Make breakfast, pack lunches, iron clothes, get Zoe ready for school. Make sure the house was spotless because Lord knows if it wasn't, Derek would have something to say about it. And Derek would roll out of bed around 8, stroll into the kitchen in his designer pajamas, and ask me what was for breakfast. No good morning, no thank you, no offer to help. Just what's for breakfast, like I was the hired help instead of his wife. You want to know what's funny? Everyone at church thought Derek was the perfect husband. They saw him in his tailored suits, shaking hands with the deacon board flashing that $1 million smile. They heard him pray out loud, voice all deep and smooth, talking about how blessed he was to have such a beautiful family. But they didn't see what happened behind closed doors. They didn't see that I was the one paying for those suits. Every single one of them. They didn't see that the house we lived in, the one everyone complimented at every church function, was bought with my inheritance from my grandmother. My name was on that deed. My money paid that down payment. My salary covered that mortgage every single month. Derek hadn't worked in 2 years, 2 whole years. But if you asked him, he was an entrepreneur. He was building something. He was networking, making connections, laying the foundation for his empire. What he was actually doing was spending my money at the gym, meeting up with people who never turned into business partners, and coming home smelling like cologne that wasn't his. But I didn't know about that last part yet. Not then. What I did know was that I was tired. Bone tired. Soul tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix because it goes deeper than your body. It lives in your spirit. I was working 12-hour days at the office, managing multi-million-dollar accounts, making decisions that affected entire departments. Then I would come home and start my second shift, cooking, cleaning, helping Zoe with homework, dealing with whatever drama Derek's family had cooked up that week. Oh, let me tell you about his family. His mother, Lorraine, moved in with us about 3 years into our marriage. It was supposed to be temporary. She was having some health issues, needed help getting back on her feet. I said yes because that's what good wives do, right? They take care of family. That was 6 years ago. She never left. And in those 6 years, Mama Lorraine never paid a single bill. Not rent, not utilities, not groceries. She ate my food used, my electricity watched my cable, and had the audacity to complain that the coffee was too weak and the chicken was too dry. Every month I paid for her medications, $400 straight out of my pocket. Every time she had a doctor's appointment, I took time off work to drive her there. She didn't thank me. She just criticized my driving and asked why I was always in such a rush. And Derek never said a word. Not to defend me, not to ask his mother to contribute, nothing. Then there was Tiffany, Derek's sister. She didn't live with us, thank God, but she might as well have with how much of my money she was taking. Every month, sometimes every week, she would call with an emergency. Her car broke down. Her kids needed school supplies. Her rent was due, and she was a little short. A little short. That woman owed me $12,000. $12,000 I would never see again, because in that family, asking for your money back made you the bad guy. I remember this one Sunday after church. I was exhausted. My blood pressure had been acting up, and I'd been having these headaches that wouldn't quit. All I wanted to do was go home and rest. But Mama Lorraine had other plans. She stood up in the church parking lot, surrounded by all her friends, and announced that she was hosting Sunday dinner at our house. Our house, without asking me, without even telling me beforehand. So instead of resting, I spent the whole afternoon cooking for 15 people. Derek sat in the living room watching football while I sweated over the stove. Mama Lorraine sat at the table giving directions like she was the head chef, even though she hadn't touched a single pot. After everyone ate and left, I started cleaning up. Derek walked past me, patted my shoulder, and said, "Good job, babe," like I was a dog that had performed a trick. That night alone in my bathroom, I cried for an hour. Not because of the dinner, not because of the cleaning, but because I couldn't remember the last time my husband had looked at me like I was anything more than a convenience, a paycheck, a maid. I loved him once. I really did. When we met at that church youth group, Derek was charming and attentive and made me feel like the only woman in the world. He told me I was beautiful every single day. He opened doors for me. He made plans for our future. What happened to that man? Where did he go? I told myself it was just a rough patch. Every marriage goes through them. I told myself if I just worked a little harder, loved him a little more, things would get better. I was lying to myself. And somewhere deep down, I think I knew it. But knowing something is wrong and doing something about it are two very different things, especially when you've built a life around a lie, especially when you have a child caught in the middle. Zoe was the only good thing to come out of that marriage. My baby girl, 5 years old with the biggest brown eyes you've ever seen and a smile that could light up a room. She looked just like me. Everyone said so. Same chocolate skin, same button nose, same way of tilting her head when she was thinking hard about something. She was my heart, my reason. The only thing keeping me in that house, in that marriage, in that life. I would have walked through fire for that little girl. Turns out I didn't have to walk through fire, I just had to walk through truth. And the truth was about to come out in ways I never expected. The cracks started showing about 4 months before everything fell apart. Little things at first. Things I tried to explain away because I didn't want to see what was right in front of my face. It started with his phone. Derek had always been attached to that thing, but it got worse. He started sleeping with it under his pillow, taking it into the bathroom every single time, even just to brush his teeth, tilting the screen away whenever I walked past. One night around 2 a.m, I woke up to the sound of buzzing. His phone was going off over and over, text after text after text. I pretended to be asleep. Through my barely open eyes, I watched him grab the phone, squint at the screen, and smile. Not just any smile, that smile. The one he used to give me when we were dating, the one I hadn't seen in years. He typed something back quick and quiet, then set the phone face down on the nightstand. A few seconds later, it buzzed again. He picked it up, immediately read it, and let out this little laugh, soft like he didn't want me to hear. Then he got out of bed, told me he needed water, was gone for 20 minutes. When he came back, he didn't say a word, just slid under the covers like nothing happened. The next morning, I asked him about it, asked why his phone was going off so late. Work stuff, he said. One of his investors was in a different time zone. Investors. Right. The same investors who had been investing for 2 years without producing a single dollar of return. The same business that existed only in Derek's imagination. I let it go, Because what else was I supposed to do? Accuse my husband of cheating based on some late-night texts? I didn't have proof. I just had this feeling in my gut, this heaviness that wouldn't go away. Then there were the business trips. Derek had never been much of a traveler during our marriage, but suddenly he had meetings everywhere: Dallas, Houston, New Orleans. Sometimes he'd be gone for 3 days at a time. He always came back with the same story. The meeting went great. Big things are coming. Just gotta trust the process. But he never had specifics, never showed me a contract or a proposal or anything that proved these meetings actually happened. And he always came back smelling different. Not bad, just different, like a perfume that wasn't mine. I started checking things, little things. One afternoon while he was at the gym, I drove by the parking lot, just to see, just to know. His car wasn't there. When he came home that night all sweaty and talking about how hard he worked out, I asked him which gym he went to. The one on Riverside, he said. That's the one I drove by, I told him. I didn't see your car. He didn't even blink. I went to the other location, wanted to try out their new equipment. There is no other location. That gym only has one building. I'd been paying the membership long enough to know, but I didn't push, didn't. I just filed it away. Another crack in the foundation. Then there was his mother. Mama Lorraine had never liked me. From day one, she made it clear that no woman would ever be good enough for her precious son. But she tolerated me because I was useful. I paid the bills. I kept the house running. I made sure her baby boy had everything he needed. But around this time, she got bolder, meaner. One Sunday dinner, she looked at Zoe for a long time. Just stared at her while Zoe was eating her macaroni and cheese, oblivious to everything. Then Mama Lorraine said something that made my blood run cold. She sure is dark-skinned. Nobody in our family is that dark. I felt the whole table go still. Derek stopped chewing. Tiffany looked down at her plate. Even the air in the room felt heavy. She gets it from me, I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. That's how genetics work, Mama Lorraine. She looks like her mother. Mama Lorraine made this little sound. If you say so. If I say so. What was that supposed to mean? I looked at Derek, waiting for him to say something, to defend me, to defend our daughter, to tell his mother to shut her mouth. He picked up his fork and kept eating. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment, the way Mama Lorraine looked at Zoe, the way she said nobody in our family, like my daughter wasn't part of her family, like my daughter was something to be suspicious about. Was that what Derek thought too? Did he look at our beautiful girl and see a question mark instead of a child? The thought made me sick to my stomach. 2 weeks later, I overheard something I wasn't supposed to hear. Tiffany was in the kitchen on her phone. I was coming down the hallway, moving quiet because Zoe was napping and I didn't want to wake her. I heard Tiffany's voice low and conspiratorial. She doesn't even know about... Then she saw me. Her eyes went wide and she turned away fast. I'll call you back, she said into the phone and hung up. I asked her what she was talking about, what I didn't know about. Nothing she said, all defensive. Mind your business, Nadine, my business. In my house. That I paid for. But I didn't push, because pushing meant confrontation. Confrontation meant drama. And I was so tired of drama. I was tired of a lot of things. Tired of being the only one working. Tired of being the only one trying. Tired of being treated like a stranger in my own home. But more than anything, I was tired of not knowing. The not knowing was eating me alive. So I made a decision. I could have confronted Derek, demanded answers, screamed and cried and threatened to leave. But I'm an accountant. I work with numbers, with facts, with evidence. I don't make accusations I can't back up. I don't start fights I might not win. If my husband was hiding something, I was going to find out exactly what it was. Not with accusations, not with drama, with receipts. Because in my world, receipts don't lie. People do. But receipts, they tell the truth every single time. It was time to start collecting. I called my best friend Carmen the next day. Carmen and I go back 15 years. We met in college, survived nursing school together before I switched to accounting, and had been through everything side by side. Bad boyfriends, family drama, career struggles. She was the one person in this world I trusted completely. I told her everything, the late-night texts, the fake gym visits, the business trips that didn't add up. Mama Lorraine's comments about Zoe, the way Derek looked at me sometimes like I was a problem he was trying to solve. Carmen listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long silence on the phone. Then she said something that changed everything. "I know someone, a private investigator. She used to be a police detective, good at what she does and more importantly discreet. A private investigator." The words felt heavy, serious. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was action. "Are you sure?" Carmen asked. "Because once you go down this road, you can't go back. Whatever she finds, you're going to have to live with it." I thought about Zoe. I thought about the way Derek smiled at his phone at 2 a.m. I thought about Mama Lorraine saying nobody in our family is that dark. I'm sure I told Carmen. I need to know. 2 days later, I met Yolanda Brooks at a coffee shop on the other side of town, far from anywhere I might run into someone I knew. Yolanda was a black woman in her late 30s, sharp eyes, natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, no-nonsense energy radiating off her like heat. She ordered black coffee and got straight to the point. "Tell me what you need to know," she said. "Everything. Who my husband is really spending time with. Where he actually goes when he says he's working. Where our money is going." She nodded, pulling out a notepad. "How far do you want me to go?" "All the way," I said. "I want evidence that can hold up in court. If there's something to find, I want it documented." Yolanda studied me for a moment. "You know this might not turn up anything. Sometimes husbands really are just bad at communication. I know. But they're planning something. His mother, his sister, him. I can feel it. And I want to be ready." She gave me a card with her number and told me her rates. It wasn't cheap, but I had been saving money in a separate account for years. Emergency money, I called it. Turns out my emergency had arrived. Over the next 3 months, Yolanda went to work. The first update came in week 2. She called me at the office during my lunch break, voice calm and professional. "Your husband has been renting an apartment," she said, "across town. 4847 Maple Street, Unit 12B. Lease is in his name. An apartment I didn't know anything about. An apartment. We lived in a 4-bedroom house with plenty of space. Why would he need another place?" The answer came a few seconds later. "He's not alone there," Yolanda continued. "There's a woman, young, late 20s. I've got photos of him entering and leaving with her. I'll send them to your secure email." When I opened those photos that night locked in the bathroom while Derek watched TV downstairs, I felt something inside me shift. There he was, my husband, walking into a building I'd never seen with his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. In one photo, he was carrying grocery bags. In another, he was laughing at something she said, that same smile from the late-night texts lighting up his face. He looked happy, actually happy, more alive than I'd seen him in years. Week 4 brought more information. The woman's name was Mia Thompson, 29 years old, personal trainer at a gym called Elite Fitness, not the gym Derek claimed to go to. They'd been together for 4 years. 4 years. Before Zoe started kindergarten. Before Mama Lorraine moved in. For almost half of our marriage, my husband had been living a double life. But that wasn't even the worst part. The call came in week 6. Yolanda's voice was different this time, heavier. "Nadine," she said, "you need to sit down for this one." I was already sitting at my desk, but I gripped the armrest anyway. "What did you find?" "A birth certificate," she said, "for a child named Derek Lamont Carter Jr., goes by DJ. He's 3 years old." The world stopped. Father is listed as Derek Lamont Carter. Mother is Mia Thompson. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was telling me. "My husband has a son," I finally managed to say, "with another woman." "Yes, and based on my investigation, his mother knows. His sister knows. They've all been covering it up." "How do you know they know phone records?" Yolanda said. "I pulled his call history. He talks to his mother every few days. A lot of those calls happen right after he visits Mia and the boy. And I got some text messages. His mother texted Mia directly, called her his real wife, called DJ her real grandson, his real wife, his real grandson. What did that make me? What did that make Zoe? I sat in my car for 2 hours that night, didn't go home, didn't call anyone. Just sat there in a parking lot staring at the photos and documents Yolanda had sent. My whole marriage was a lie. The man sleeping next to me every night had another family, a whole other life. And the people who were supposed to be my family too, his mother, his sister, they knew and said nothing. No, not just said nothing. They actively hid it, helped him keep his secret. And now they were sitting in my house, eating my food, spending my money, while calling some other woman his real wife. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to that apartment and break down the door. I wanted to confront Derek right then and there. But I didn't. Because I'm not a woman who acts on emotion. I act on evidence. And the evidence was telling me to wait. Yolanda called me a few days later with the last piece of the puzzle. "There's more," she said. "His family isn't just covering this up. They're planning something." I pulled some more communications, group text between Derek, his mother, and his sister. "They've been talking about you, about how to get you out of the picture. Get me out." "The house," she said. "They want the house. They think it's Derek's. They've been talking about how once he divorces you, he can move Mia in. His mother mentioned something about a DNA test, about proving Zoe isn't Derek's, so he doesn't have to pay child support." My hands started shaking. They were going to try to take my daughter from me, claim she wasn't his, use that as an excuse to throw me out of my own house and keep everything for themselves. They had no idea what was coming. Because that house, it was in my name only. My grandmother made me promise to never add a man to the deed until he proved himself worthy. Derek never proved anything except how good he was at spending my money. Those cars they wanted. Both in my name, my credit, my loans, the bank account they thought was theirs. I had every deposit slip for 9 years, showing exactly whose money was in there. They wanted to come for me. Fine. Let them come. But I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. They were planning something big, probably something public, knowing Mama Lorraine's love of drama. And when they made their move, I would be ready. I called my friend Patricia. She's a family law attorney who had been through her own messy divorce and come out the other side stronger than ever. "Pat," I said when she answered, "I need your help, and I need you to keep it quiet. Tell me everything she said." So I did. And when I finished, she let out a long whistle. "Girl," she said, "they have no idea who they're messing with, do they?" "No," I said. "They really don't. We're going to bury them, legally, by the book, so deep they'll never dig their way out." I smiled for the first time in weeks. "Then let's get started." Zoe's 5th birthday was coming up, and Mama Lorraine suddenly decided she wanted to help plan it. Now, in 6 years of living in my house, that woman had never offered to help plan anything. Not Thanksgiving, not Christmas, not Easter. She would show up, eat the food I cooked, complain about whatever wasn't to her liking, and leave me to clean up the mess. But for Zoe's birthday, suddenly she was full of ideas. "We should do it at the house," she said one evening, inserting herself into a conversation I was having with Derek about party venues. "More personal, more intimate. We can invite everybody." Everybody. That word made my antenna go up. "Who's everybody?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Family," she said. "Church folks, neighbors. The more the better. It's not every day a child turns 5. Since when did Mama Lorraine care about making Zoe's birthday special?" This was the same woman who barely acknowledged my daughter's existence half the time. The same woman who looked at Zoe like she was searching for evidence of something wrong. I agreed to the house party, said it was a lovely idea, smiled like I meant it, because I knew exactly what she was planning. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched them, Derek, his mother, his sister. They huddled in corners, whispered in the kitchen, stopped talking whenever I walked into the room. They thought they were being slick. They had no idea I was watching every single move. Tiffany called one afternoon supposedly to talk about party decorations, but halfway through the conversation, she slipped. "It's going to be so good," she said, giggling. "Derek is going to finally—" She stopped. "Never mind. Just make sure you're ready for the party. Ready for what I asked, playing dumb, for fun. It's going to be fun." "Lots of surprises." "I bet," I said. "I bet there are." The night before the party, I sat down with Carmen, Patricia, and Yolanda at Carmen's house. The evidence was spread across the dining room table. Photos of Derek and Mia, the birth certificate for DJ, phone records, text messages, bank statements showing every dollar I'd contributed while Derek contributed nothing, the deed to the house in my name, the car loans in my name, everything. "What do you think they're planning?" Carmen asked. "The The DNA test, I said. They've been pushing this narrative that Zoe doesn't look like Derek, that she's too dark, her features are too different, whatever excuse they can find. They're going to ambush me with a DNA test at the party, try to publicly humiliate me in front of everyone we know. And you're just going to let them— Patricia raised an eyebrow. I'm going to let them think they've won, I said. Let Derek make his big announcement. Let him demand his test. And then I'm going to show everyone exactly who the liar really is. Yolanda slid a manila folder across the table. Everything you need is in here. Photos, documents, all of it. Documents. Organized and ready. I also made 3 backup copies. One with Carmen, one with your grandmother, one in a safe deposit box. I picked up the folder. It felt heavier than it should have. 9 years of marriage reduced to evidence in a legal case. Patricia leaned forward. I've drafted the divorce papers. The moment he makes his move, we file. I've also prepared documents for a restraining order if we need it. And I looked into the house situation. Because you paid the down payment from your inheritance, and every mortgage payment came from your account, there's a strong argument for it being your separate property. He has no claim. What about Zoe? I asked. That's all I really care about. I don't care about the house or the money or any of it. I just need my daughter. Based on everything you've told me, Patricia said, Derek has been emotionally and financially absent. He's been hiding a whole second family. And if he publicly accuses your daughter of not being his, which is clearly what he's planning, that's going to look really bad for him in custody court. A judge won't look kindly on a man who humiliates his own child. She's 5 years old, Carmen added, her voice tight with anger. What kind of man does that to a 5-year-old? A desperate one, I said. A man who sees his meal ticket slipping away and is trying to grab whatever he can on the way out. We finished preparing around midnight. I drove home in silence, the folder of evidence sitting on the passenger seat like a loaded weapon. When I walked in the door, Derek was still awake watching TV in the living room. Hey, he said without looking at me. Where were you, Carmen's? Final party planning. He nodded, eyes on the screen. Should be a good party. Yes, I said. It should be. I went upstairs and checked on Zoe. She was sleeping peacefully, her stuffed elephant tucked under her arm, completely unaware that tomorrow her whole world was about to change. I sat on the edge of her bed for a long time watching her breathe. No matter what happens, I whispered, Mommy's got you. Always. The morning of the party, I woke up strangely calm. I'd read about this feeling. Soldiers talk about it before going into battle. Athletes describe it before the big game. This absolute clarity, this certainty that whatever was coming, you were ready for it. I put on my best dress, royal blue because that's my power color. Did my natural locks up nice. Put on the earrings my grandmother gave me for my wedding day. Looked at myself in the mirror and recognized the woman staring back. Not a victim, not a fool, a warrior about to go to war. Grandma Ruby arrived early before the other guests. She took one look at me and knew. Today's the day, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am. Today's the day. She hugged me tight. The Lord sees everything, baby, and he ain't sleeping. Whatever they got planned, he's already prepared your victory. I hope so, Grandma. I know so. The guests started arriving around 2 o'clock. Family members bringing presents. Church members bringing casseroles. Neighbors bringing their kids for the bounce house in the backyard. 63 people. That's how many ended up at my house that day. 63 witnesses to what was about to go down. Derek was on. I mean, really on. Charming everyone, laughing at jokes, playing the role of devoted husband and father. He picked up Zoe and spun her around, kissed her forehead, told everyone how proud he was of his little girl. His little girl. The same one he was about to publicly deny. Mama Lorraine arrived with Tiffany around 3. They were both dressed up, hair done, makeup perfect. They looked like women going to a celebration, and in their minds they probably were. Mama Lorraine kept catching my eye and smiling. This knowing, satisfied smile like a cat that's cornered a mouse. She had no idea she was the mouse. I saw her hand. Derek something at one point. A white envelope. He slipped it into his jacket pocket quickly, but I saw. That was the DNA test kit. They'd come prepared, 3:45, cake time. Everyone gathered around. Zoe was in her princess dress, tiara, slightly crooked face, lit up with pure joy. The cake was shaped like a castle, pink and purple frosting, 5 candles waiting to be lit. I started to light the candles when Derek stepped forward. "Wait," he said, holding up his hand. "Before we do the cake, I have something to say." The room went quiet. All 63 people turned to look at him. I felt Grandma Ruby's hand find mine. She squeezed once. "I'm here." I stepped back from the cake. "Let Derek have the floor." He looked out at the crowd with this serious expression, the concerned father, the tortured husband. For years he began his voice carrying across the silent room. I've had questions, doubts, things that didn't add up. I watched Mama Lorraine nod encouragingly from the corner of my eye. "I love my wife," Derek continued, "but I need to know the truth. I need to know about Zoe." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Oh no." Derek reached into his pocket and pulled out the white envelope. "I'm demanding a DNA test, right here, right now, in front of everyone, because I deserve to know if that little girl is really my daughter." The room exploded, voices everywhere, people shouting at Derek, others trying to calm things down. My aunt was crying. One of the deacons was praying out loud. Through it all, Zoe stood frozen by her birthday cake tears, starting to roll down her cheeks. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she understood enough. Her daddy was saying something bad about her. Mama Lorraine stepped forward, putting her hand on Derek's shoulder. "It's about time," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "You deserve the truth, son," Tiffany chimed in. "We all know something ain't right. Every eye in that room was on me, waiting to see me crumble, waiting to see me cry, scream, fall apart. I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I smiled. Derek." I said, my voice clear and calm. "You want a DNA test?" "That's what I said." His chin lifted. "I'm not ashamed of the truth. In front of everyone. You want to do this in front of everyone? I'm not hiding anything." "Are you?" The challenge hung in the air. He thought he had me. He really thought he had me. I looked at him, at Mama Lorraine with her smug face, at Tiffany with her arms crossed. Then I walked over to my purse. "Perfect," I said, reaching inside. "Because neither am I. But before we do your test, let me introduce everyone to somebody first." I pulled out the manila folder, and for the first time since I'd known him, I watched my husband's face go completely white. Because in that moment, before I said another word, before I showed a single piece of evidence, he knew. He knew the trap had been set, and he had just walked right into it. The folder felt solid in my hands, 9 years of lies documented and organized, ready to be exposed. Derek stared at it like I was holding a live grenade. What is that?" His voice cracked. "This," I said, holding it up so everyone could see, "is the truth. The truth you've been hiding, the truth your mama helped you cover up, the truth your sister has been blackmailing you about." Mama Lorraine's smile vanished. Tiffany took a step back. "You want to question our daughter's DNA, Derek, fine. But first let's talk about yours." I could feel the energy in the room shift. The whispers stopped. Everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what came next. Derek's eyes darted to his mother, then to the door, then back to me. He was calculating, looking for an escape. But there wasn't one. 63 people stood between him and that door. "You've got nothing," he said, but his voice was shaking. "You're just trying to deflect because you got caught." I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed in the silent room. "Caught, baby. The only thing I've been caught doing is working myself to death to pay for your lifestyle while you played house with another woman." More gasps. Someone dropped a cup. No one moved to pick it up. "That's a lie," Mama Lorraine shouted. "Don't you dare spread lies about my son." I turned to face her directly. "Lies. Let me tell you about lies, Mama Lorraine. Lies are what you've been telling me for 6 years while you lived in my house. Lies are what you told the church about what a good son Derek is. Lies are what you whisper to that woman calling her his real wife." Her face went from angry to terrified in a second flat. "I don't know what you're talking about. Really. Because I have the text messages, I have the phone records, I have everything." The room was completely silent now. You could have heard a pin drop in that house. Nobody was moving. Nobody was leaving. Everyone wanted to see what was in that folder. I opened it slowly, deliberately, letting the moment build. Inside this folder, I said, is proof of a 4-year affair. Proof of a secret apartment paid for with my money. Proof of a child, a 3-year-old boy named Derek Jr. The explosion of voices was deafening. What did she say? A whole baby, Lord have mercy. I let them react for a moment, let the shock settle in. Then I continued. I also have proof that Mama Lorraine knew about this child and helped hide him. Proof that Tiffany has been covering it up too. And proof that for 9 years of marriage, Derek has contributed exactly $15,000 to this household while I paid for everything else. I looked at my husband, who stood frozen in the middle of the room, sweat beading on his forehead. So yes, Derek, let's do your DNA test. Let's prove that Zoe is absolutely 100% your biological daughter. And then let's talk about your other child, the one you've been hiding for 3 years. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Because what could he say? What could any of them say? The truth had entered the room, and it was bigger than all of them combined. I looked at Zoe standing by her, cake tears on her cheeks, tiara falling off her head. My heart broke for her. My baby shouldn't have to witness this. But she also deserved to know that her mother wasn't a liar, that her mother was the one who had been betrayed, that her mother would fight for her until the very end. I walked over, knelt down, and pulled her into my arms. "It's okay, baby," I whispered. "Mommy's got you. I've always got you." Then I stood up, my daughter's hand in mine, and faced the room. I've got a lot more to say, and a lot more to show. But this party is over. I looked at Derek one last time. Your mama wanted a big show. Well, she got one. Just not the one she planned. And that was the moment. The moment my marriage ended. The moment my real life began. The moment I stopped being Derek Carter's wife and started being Nadine Carter. Period. Because that folder, it was just the beginning. What happened next would destroy everything Derek thought he had. His reputation, his finances, his family. And I was going to enjoy every single second of it. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. 63 people, all of them staring at me, at Derek, at the folder in my hands, waiting to see what came next. Derek hadn't moved. He stood frozen in the middle of the room, sweat rolling down his temples, eyes locked on that manila folder, like it was a bomb about to explode. He was right to be scared. I took a deep breath and opened the folder slowly. No rush. I had waited 6 months for this moment. I could take my time. "Derek," I said, my voice carrying across the silent room, "you wanted to question our daughter's DNA. You wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone we know. So let's do this properly. Let's talk about DNA. Let's talk about family. Let's talk about the truth." I pulled out the first document and held it up. "This is a birth certificate," I announced, "for a child named Derek Lamont Carter, Jr., born 3 years ago at Memorial Hospital, mother listed as Mia Thompson, father listed as Derek Lamont Carter." The room erupted. People were shouting, crying, praying out loud. Someone knocked over a chair trying to get a better look. I heard my aunt say, "Jesus, take the wheel," at least 4 times. Derek's face had gone from white to gray. He looked like a man watching his own execution. "That's a lie," he said, but his voice was weak. "That's fabricated. She made that up." Did I reached into the folder and pulled out a stack of photographs, then explained these. I held them up one by one, turning slowly so everyone could see. "This is you, walking into an apartment at 4847 Maple Street, an apartment you've been renting for 2 years, with my money." I showed the next photo. "This is you at that apartment with a woman named Mia Thompson. She's 29 years old. She works as a personal trainer. And according to my investigation, you've been sleeping with her for 4 years." More gasps, more crying. Someone's phone started recording. I didn't stop them. Let the whole world see. "This is you at the park with Mia and a little boy. The little boy is 3 years old. His name is DJ. And he's your son, Derek. Your son that you've been hiding from me for 3 years. I turned to face him directly. "So yes, let's talk about DNA. Let's talk about whose DNA is where. Because while you were accusing me of being unfaithful, you had a whole second family across town. Derek's mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. No words came out, but Mama Lorraine found hers. "This is ridiculous," she shouted, pushing through the crowd toward me. "You're making this up. You're trying to distract from your own sins. My son would never—" I turned to her with a smile. "Your son would never." "Really?" "Mama Lorraine." "Then explain this." I pulled out the phone records, pages and pages of calls between Derek, Mama Lorraine, and Mia, highlighted, dated, documented. These are phone records showing that you've been talking to Mia Thompson every week for the past 2 years. You've been helping your son hide his affair, his child. You knew about DJ this whole time. Mama Lorraine's face went from angry to terrified. "That's not— I don't know what you're—" I held up my phone, pulling up a screenshot. "Let me read this text message you sent to Mia 3 months ago." And I quote, "Don't worry, baby, you're his real wife. That other woman doesn't deserve my son. Once he gets rid of her, you and DJ will be in that house where you belong." The room went completely silent. Every eye turned to Mama Lorraine, the woman who had lived in my house for 6 years, the woman I had fed, clothed, driven to doctor's appointments, paid for medications, the woman who sat at my table every Sunday calling me family. She had been plotting to replace me the entire time. "His real wife," I repeated. "That's what you called her. And you called DJ your real grandson. So what does that make Zoe? What does that make me?" "Just placeholders until you could get rid of us." "Mama." Lorraine started crying. Big, dramatic tears that might have fooled people who didn't know better. "You don't understand," she wailed. "I was just trying to protect my son. That woman Mia, she got pregnant, and Derek didn't know what to do. I was helping him figure it out." "Helping him figure it out," I laughed. "You were helping him hide it. You were helping him steal from me to pay for his secret family. You were helping him plan to throw me out of my own house so his mistress could move in." I turned to face the crowd, and she wasn't alone. Tiffany had been trying to edge toward the back door. She froze when I said her name. "Tiffany," I said sweetly, "where do you think you're going? We haven't talked about your role in all this yet." "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice was shaking. "No, then let me refresh your memory." I pulled out more text messages. "These are texts between you and Derek. Texts where you acknowledge knowing about Mia and DJ. Texts where you agree to keep quiet in exchange for money. You've been blackmailing your own brother Tiffany, taking money from him, money that came from me, to keep his secret." Tiffany's face crumpled. "It wasn't like that," she said. "I just needed help. And he offered—" "You needed help." I cut her off. "You've borrowed $12,000 from me over the years. $12,000 you never paid back. And this whole time you knew my husband was cheating on me. You knew he had another child, and you said nothing." I looked around the room at all the faces staring back at me. Friends, family, church members, neighbors. For 3 years I said these 3 people have been lying to me, stealing from me, planning to take everything I worked for. And they thought I would never find out. I closed the folder and held it against my chest. But I did find out, because I don't just get angry, I get evidence, and I have evidence of everything. The room was still processing everything I had revealed. People were whispering, crying, some were even laughing in disbelief. My aunt had to sit down because her legs gave out, but I wasn't done yet. "Derek," I said, turning back to my husband, "you wanted a DNA test, remember? You wanted to prove that Zoe isn't yours. You were so sure that I had cheated on you." I reached into my purse and pulled out a white envelope. "Well, I saved you the trouble. I had the test done 2 months ago. Professional lab, court admissible, everything by the book." Derek's eyes went wide. You already did it." "I did. Because unlike you, I don't make accusations without proof. I wanted to be ready for whatever lies you planned to tell." I opened the envelope and pulled out the results. According to this DNA test conducted by GeneTech Laboratories, Derek Lamont Carter is the biological father of Zoe Elaine Carter, with a probability of 99.97%. I let that sink in for a moment. "She's yours, Derek. 100% yours. The daughter you just accused me of fathering with another man. The 5-year-old little girl standing right there in her princess dress crying because her daddy just told a room full of people that she might not be his. I pointed to Zoe, who was being held by Grandma Ruby, tears streaming down her face. "Look at her, Derek. Look at what you just did to your own child." For the first time, Derek looked at Zoe, really looked at her, and I watched something break behind his eyes. But I didn't feel sorry for him, not even a little bit. "You know what's funny?" I continued. "Your mother kept saying Zoe was too dark, that she didn't have the Carter features, that nobody in your family looks like her." I walked over to where Zoe was standing and knelt down beside her. "She looks like me," I said. "She looks like her mother. Because that's how genetics work sometimes. The child looks like one parent more than the other. It doesn't mean anything except that my genes were stronger." I stood back up and faced Mama Lorraine. "But you didn't want to accept that, did you? You couldn't stand that. Zoe looked like me instead of your precious son, so you convinced yourself and convinced Derek that something must be wrong, that I must have cheated." Mama Lorraine was still crying, but quieter now. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "You weaponized my daughter against me," I said. "You used her skin color, her features, her existence to try to destroy me. And the whole time she was exactly who she was supposed to be. Derek's daughter, my daughter, a perfect, beautiful, innocent little girl who did nothing wrong except be born to a family that didn't deserve her." I heard murmurs of agreement from the crowd. Someone said, "That's right." Someone else said, "Amen. So here's your DNA test, Derek." I threw the results at him. The papers scattered across the floor at his feet. "Zoe is yours. She's always been yours. And you just traumatized her for nothing, for absolutely nothing except your own ego and your mother's poison." Derek bent down slowly and picked up one of the papers. He stared at it like he couldn't read the words, like his brain was refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. "I didn't," he started. "I thought, Mama said I cut him off. Mama said, 'You're a grown man, Derek, 46 years old, and you let your mother convince you that your own daughter wasn't yours without a single shred of evidence.'" I shook my head. "No. You wanted to believe it. You wanted an excuse to leave me without looking like the bad guy. You thought if you could prove I cheated, you could take everything in the divorce. The house, the cars, maybe even custody of Zoe." I stepped closer to him, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "But here's what you forgot, baby. That house is in my name. Those cars are in my name. Every single thing in our life I paid for with my money, my credit, my sweat." I stepped back and raised my voice again so everyone could hear. "You don't own anything, Derek. You never did. And now the whole world knows it." The room was completely still. Even the children had stopped crying. Everyone was watching, waiting, holding their breath to see what would happen next. Derek looked up from the DNA results, his face a mask of shock and shame. "Nadine," he said, his voice cracking, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean. I was wrong. Please, let's talk about this. Talk about it." I laughed. "You want to talk now, after you accused me of adultery in front of our entire community, after you called our daughter's parentage into question at her own birthday party, after you spent 4 years sleeping with another woman and fathering another child?" I shook my head slowly. "No, Derek, we're done talking. We've been done talking for a long time. I just didn't know it. But baby, we can work through this. We can get counseling. We can—" "No," I said firmly. "We can't. Because I don't want to work through this. I don't want counseling. I don't want to fix what you broke." I looked around the room at all the people watching us. "What I want," I said, "is justice. And I'm going to get it." Derek tried to reach for my hand. I stepped back before he could touch me. "Don't," I said. "Don't you dare try to touch me right now. Nadine, please." His voice was desperate now. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But I love you. I've always loved you. You love me." I stared at him. "You've been sleeping with another woman for 4 years. You have a 3-year-old son with her. You've been spending my money on their apartment, their food, their life. And you love me." "I didn't mean for it to happen," Derek said. It got out of control. Mia was there when you were working late, and I was lonely and—" "Oh, I see." I nodded slowly. "So this is my fault. I was working too much to support your unemployed self, so naturally you had to find comfort in another woman's bed. That's not what I meant." "Then, what did you mean, Derek?" Because I'm dying to understand how a man who hasn't worked in 2 years, who drives a car I pay for, who lives in a house I own, who eats food I buy, thinks he has the right to cheat on the woman keeping him alive. Derek had nothing to say to that. I turned to face the room again. Let me tell you all something about this marriage. For 9 years, I have been the sole provider of this household. I work 12-hour days as a senior accountant. I manage million-dollar accounts for Fortune 500 companies, and every single penny I earned went into keeping this family afloat. I pointed at Derek. This man contributed $15,000 in 9 years. Total. That's less than $2,000 a year. Meanwhile, I paid the mortgage of $2,800 every single month. I paid both car payments. I paid utilities. I paid groceries. I paid for his mama's medications. I paid for his sister's so-called emergencies. I looked around at all the faces, making sure they understood. I wasn't a wife. I was an ATM. And while I was out there working myself to the bone, he was at the gym, not working out, meeting his girlfriend, using the membership I paid for to cheat on me. Someone in the crowd said, "Lord, have mercy." But it gets better, I continued. Not only was Derek cheating, but his whole family was helping him do it. I turned to Mama Lorraine. You moved into my house 6 years ago. Temporary, you said. Just until you got back on your feet. 6 years later, you're still here. Have you paid rent? No. Have you paid utilities? No. Have you bought groceries? No. But you had plenty of time to talk to your son's mistress every week. Plenty of time to plan how to get rid of me so she could take my place. Mama Lorraine was sobbing now, ugly crying in front of everyone she knew. I was just trying to protect my son, she wailed. He's my baby. I had to help him, protect him, I shot back. From what? From the wife who was paying his way through life? From the woman who took care of you when your own blood children wouldn't? You weren't protecting him. You were enabling him. You were helping him destroy a family so he could build another one with his side piece. I walked closer to her, close enough that she could see exactly how angry I was. And let's talk about those comments you made about Zoe. Too dark. Doesn't look like a Carter. Nobody in our family looks like that. I leaned in. You looked at my child, your grandchild, and decided she wasn't good enough because she looked like me. You poisoned Derek's mind against his own daughter. And for what? Because you couldn't stand that I'm darker than your family, because my features are stronger than your precious Carter genes. Mama Lorraine shook her head frantically. I never meant it like that. I just noticed she was different, and I thought... You thought what? That dark skin equals infidelity. That if a child looks like her black mother instead of her lighter father, something must be wrong. I straightened up and addressed the room. This is what colorism looks like, y'all. It's in our own families, in our own communities. A grandmother looking at her grandchild and seeing suspicion instead of love because of the shade of her skin. Several people in the crowd nodded. I saw tears on more than a few faces. Then I turned to Tiffany, who had been trying to make herself invisible in the corner. And you, I said. Don't think I forgot about you. Tiffany's eyes went wide. Nadine, please. I didn't want to be involved. Derek just told me and I didn't know what to do. You didn't know what to do, I repeated. How about telling me? How about being honest with the woman who's been paying your bills for years? How about having basic human decency? I pulled out my phone and read from the screen. Let me read this text you sent to Derek last year. Bro, you better keep paying me or I'll tell Nadine everything. I need that money. She doesn't need to know where it comes from. I looked up at her. You were blackmailing your own brother, taking money from him, which was really money from me, to keep quiet about his affair. You weren't protecting anyone. You were profiting off my pain. Tiffany started crying too. I needed the money, she whimpered. I'm a single mom. I have bills. I held up my hand to stop her. You owe me $12,000, Tiffany. Money you borrowed and never paid back. Money I gave you because I thought we were family. And this whole time you were laughing behind my back with your brother and your mother planning how to steal everything from me. I looked at all three of them. Derek, Mama Lorraine, and Tiffany. The unholy trinity of betrayal. You know what's ironic, I said. You all thought you were so smart. You had this perfect plan. Get a DNA test. Prove I cheated. Use that as grounds for divorce. Take the house, the cars, everything I worked for. Move Mia in. Live happily ever after. I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. But you made one fatal mistake. You underestimated me. You thought I was just a quiet, hard-working wife who would never fight back. You thought I would crumble when confronted. You thought I would cry and beg and make this easy for you. I held up the folder of evidence. But I'm not that woman. I'm an accountant. I track money. I find discrepancies. I build cases. And I've spent the last 6 months building the case of my life. I looked directly at Derek. Against you. The room had been silent for a while now. No more gasps. No more whispers. Just 63 people watching 3 lives fall apart in real time. I was about to make it worse. Since we're all here, I said, addressing the crowd, since everyone is already a witness to this disaster, let me tell you what happens next. I reached into my purse and pulled out another set of papers. These weren't evidence. These were consequences. I've already spoken to my attorney, I announced. These are divorce papers. They were prepared 2 weeks ago. I've been waiting for the right moment to serve them. I walked over to Derek and held out the papers. Consider yourself served. He took them with shaking hands, staring at the words like they were written in a foreign language. But that's not all, I continued. Let me explain a few things that are about to happen. I held up one finger. Number 1, this house. The one we're standing in right now. The one you thought you were going to keep and move your girlfriend into? This house is in my name. Only my name. The down payment came from my grandmother's inheritance. Every mortgage payment for 9 years came from my account. Legally, it's my separate property. You have no claim to it whatsoever. Derek looked up from the papers. But we're married. It's marital property. No, I said firmly, it's not. My attorney has already confirmed this. In the state of Texas, property purchased with separate funds and maintained with separate income remains separate property. You contributed nothing. You get nothing. I held up a second finger. Number 2, the cars. Both of them are in my name. Both loans are in my name. Both insurance policies are in my name. That BMW you love so much, the one you drive to meet your girlfriend, it goes back to the dealership on Monday. Nadine, wait. I'm not finished. I held up a third finger. Number 3, I've filed for full custody of Zoe. Given what happened here today, given that you publicly humiliated your own daughter at her birthday party, given that you've been financially absent for years, I don't think I'll have any trouble getting it. I looked at him with cold satisfaction. You wanted to take my daughter from me. You wanted to prove she wasn't yours, so you wouldn't have to pay child support. Well, she is yours, and now you're going to pay, every month, for the next 13 years, whether you have a job or not. Derek sank into a chair, the divorce papers crumpling in his hands. I held up a fourth finger. Number 4, your mother and your sister are no longer welcome in my house, effective immediately. I turned to look at Mama Lorraine and Tiffany. You have 72 hours to collect your belongings and leave. I will have a sheriff's deputy here to supervise if necessary, and if you're not out by then, I will have you removed by force. Mama Lorraine stumbled forward. But where will I go? I'm 62 years old. I have health problems. You can't just throw me out on the street. I looked at her with absolutely no sympathy. You have 4 other children. Call them. Because you're not my responsibility anymore. You stopped being my family the moment you started plotting with your son's mistress to steal my life. What about my medications? My doctors. I've been paying $400 a month for your medications, I said. Driving you to every appointment, taking time off work to care for you, and you repaid me by trying to destroy my marriage and take my home. So, no, I won't be paying for anything else. Figure it out. I turned to Tiffany, and you. The $12,000 you owe me, I want a payment plan on my desk by next week, or I'm taking you to small claims court. Don't think I won't. Tiffany was crying so hard she could barely breathe. I don't have that kind of money, she sobbed. I can barely pay my own bills. That sounds like a you problem, I said. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to blackmail your brother instead of being honest with me. Finally, I turned back to Derek. And as for you, the man who promised to love and cherish me, the man who stood up at our wedding and vowed to be faithful. I walked closer, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. You have until Monday to move out. Take your clothes. Take your personal items. Leave everything else. The furniture I bought, the electronics I paid for, the kitchen supplies, the linens. Everything stays. But where am I supposed to go? Derek's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. Maybe Mia will take you in. You've been spending my money on her for years, might as well see if it was worth it. But I have a feeling once she finds out you're broke homeless and about to be buried in child support for 2 kids, she might not be as welcoming as you hoped. I gathered my things, took Zoe's hand from Grandma Ruby, and headed for the door. One more thing, I said, turning back to look at the 3 of them. I'm not doing this out of anger. I'm not doing this out of revenge. I'm doing this because I deserve better. I've always deserved better. I just forgot that somewhere along the way. I looked at the crowd of people who had witnessed everything. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry Zoe's birthday party turned into this, but I think it's important that everyone knows the truth. I'm not a cheater. I'm not a liar. I'm not the villain of this story. I pointed at Derek. He is. And his mother. And his sister. They're the ones who betrayed me. They're the ones who lied. And now they're the ones who are going to have to live with the consequences. I squeezed Zoe's hand and looked down at her tear-stained face. Come on, baby. Let's go to Grandma Ruby's house. This isn't our home anymore. Zoe looked up at me with those big brown eyes. Are we ever coming back, Mommy? I smiled at her, the first real smile I'd felt in months. We don't need to come back, baby. We're going to find a new home, a better home, just you and me. I walked out the front door, my daughter beside me, my grandmother behind me, and 63 witnesses watching me leave. Behind me, I heard Derek calling my name, heard Mama Lorraine wailing, heard Tiffany sobbing. I didn't look back, not even once. The drive to Grandma Ruby's house was quiet. Zoe fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from crying. I kept my eyes on the road, hands steady on the wheel, mind racing through everything that had just happened. I had done it. I had actually done it. For 6 months I had planned and prepared and gathered evidence. And when the moment came, I didn't back down. I didn't compromise. I didn't let Derek or his family talk their way out of it. I exposed them, in front of everyone they knew, and I walked away with my dignity intact. Grandma Ruby sat beside me in the passenger seat, occasionally reaching over to pat my hand. You did good, baby, she said softly. I know that was hard. But you did what needed to be done. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. That man and his family, Grandma Ruby continued. They had no idea who they were dealing with, thought they could break you down, thought they could take everything you built. But God don't like ugly, and what they did was ugly as sin. She squeezed my hand. Your grandfather would be proud of you. Your mama would be proud of you, standing up for yourself like that, protecting Zoe. That took courage. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them back. I'm scared, Grandma, I admitted. I just blew up my whole life. I don't know what happens next. What happens next is you rebuild, Grandma Ruby said firmly. You take care of yourself and that baby. You let your attorney handle the legal mess, and you start over, fresh, clean, without the dead weight dragging you down. We pulled into Grandma Ruby's driveway just as the sun was starting to set. The house looked warm and welcoming, light spilling from the windows, the smell of something good cooking drifting from the kitchen. I carried Zoe inside and put her to bed in the guest room. She woke up just long enough to ask if Daddy was coming. No, baby, I said, kissing her forehead. It's just us for a while. Is that okay? She thought about it for a moment. That's okay, Mommy. I like it when it's just us. I stayed with her until she fell back asleep, then went downstairs to find Grandma Ruby in the kitchen making tea. My phone had been blowing up since we left the party. Messages from friends, family, church members, some offering support, some asking questions, some just wanting to know if the gossip was true. I ignored all of them except one. Carmen had texted, "Girl, I heard everything. I'm on my way." By the time I finished my tea, Carmen was at the door. She came in without knocking, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. "You did it," she said into my ear. "You actually did it." "I did," I said, and suddenly I was laughing and crying at the same time. "I can't believe I did it. We sat at the kitchen table while I told her everything, every word Derek said, every excuse his mother made, every tear Tiffany cried, and how I walked out of there with my head held high. "What's happening now?" Carmen asked. Back at the house, I shook my head. "I don't know. I don't care. They can clean up their own mess." But my phone gave me updates anyway. Patricia. My attorney called around 9 o'clock. "Derek's been trying to reach you," she said. "He called my office 4 times. Wants to talk. Wants to negotiate." "There's nothing to negotiate," I told her. "That's what I said." "He didn't take it well. Started crying on the phone, said he made a mistake and he loves you and blah, blah, blah." I rolled my eyes. "What did you tell him that he can communicate through me from now on, that any attempt to contact you directly will be considered harassment, and that the divorce is proceeding whether he likes it or not?" "Good," I said. "What about the house I'm filing for an emergency order tomorrow morning? Given that the property is in your name and he's demonstrated hostile intent, we should be able to get him out within the week. His mother and sister too. And custody." Patricia paused. "Based on what happened today and the witnesses who saw it, I'm confident we'll get full custody. He publicly accused his daughter of not being his child. He humiliated her at her own birthday party. No family court judge is going to look kindly on that." I exhaled slowly. It was really happening. Everything I had worked for, everything I had planned was falling into place. "One more thing," Patricia said. I looked into Derek's financial situation. It's worse than we thought. Worse, how he's broke. Completely broke. Not only has he not worked in 2 years, but he's been running up credit card debt. Cards in his name only probably because he knew you'd see joint accounts. He owes about $40,000. I actually laughed. So he was planning to divorce me, take my house, and start fresh with his girlfriend. Meanwhile, he's $40,000 in debt. Yep. And here's the kicker. Mia doesn't know. He's been telling her he's a successful businessman, that he owns property, that he's wealthy. I wonder how she'll feel when she finds out the truth. I have a feeling Patricia said that relationship isn't going to last much longer. After I hung up with Patricia, I sat in the quiet of Grandma Ruby's kitchen and let myself process everything. My marriage was over, really and truly over. The man I had loved for 12 years, been married to for 9, had a child, built a life with. He had been lying to me the whole time, or at least for the last 4 years, maybe longer, and his family, the people I had welcomed into my home, taken care of, treated like my own. They had been working against me from the start. It hurt. God, it hurt. But underneath the hurt, there was something else, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. I didn't have to pretend anymore. Didn't have to smile and act like everything was fine when it wasn't. Didn't have to be the strong one while everyone around me took and took and took. I was free. Broken and bruised, and probably going to need therapy for years. But free. And for the first time in a very long time, I could finally breathe. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Derek tried everything to get me to reconsider. He called my phone until I blocked his number. Then he called from other numbers until I changed mine entirely. He showed up at my office until security escorted him out. He tried to go through friends, church members, anyone who might have influence with me. Nothing worked. The emergency court order came through on Wednesday. Derek, Mama Lorraine, and Tiffany had 48 hours to vacate the premises. I showed up with a sheriff's deputy to supervise, just like I said I would. Walking back into that house was surreal. It looked the same furniture, same pictures on the wall, same smell of coffee and laundry detergent, but everything felt different. Smaller somehow. Less like a home and more like a crime scene. Derek was there when I arrived, throwing clothes into garbage bags. His eyes were red, his face unshaven, his whole body slumped with defeat. "Nadine," he said when he saw me, "please, can we talk?" "There's nothing to talk about. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But 9 years of marriage, doesn't that count for something?" I looked at him, really looked at him for maybe the first time in years. "It counted for a lot, Derek. It counted for me working myself half to death while you played entrepreneur. It counted for me supporting your family when they gave me nothing but criticism. It counted for me believing you when you said you loved me even when your actions said the opposite." I shook my head slowly. "But it doesn't count for this. What you did? What you planned to do? There's no coming back from that. Mama Lorraine came down the stairs carrying a suitcase. When she saw me, she straightened up and put on her most dignified face. "I hope you're happy," she said coldly. "Destroying a family. Throwing an old woman out on the street." "I didn't destroy anything," I replied calmly. "Your son did. You helped. I'm just cleaning up the mess. The Lord will judge you for this," maybe I said. "But he's going to judge you first." Tiffany was the last to leave. She couldn't even look at me, just rushed past with her boxes head down, crying as usual. The 12,000 I called after her. I meant what I said. She didn't respond, just got in her car and drove away. When they were all gone, I walked through the empty house alone. Derek had taken his clothes and personal items. Mama Lorraine had taken her things from the guest room, but everything else remained. The house felt lighter somehow, cleaner, like the air itself could breathe again. I wasn't ready to move back in yet. Too many memories, too much pain soaked into the walls. But soon, when I was ready, the news spread through our community like wildfire. Church was the worst. That first Sunday after the party, I could feel every eye on me when I walked in. Whispers stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. People either stared openly or tried very hard not to look at all. But I held my head high and took my usual seat. Grandma Ruby was on one side of me, Carmen on the other, Zoe in my lap, my people, my real family. The pastor tried to pull me aside after service, wanted to talk about reconciliation, about forgiveness, about saving my marriage. I listened politely for about 30 seconds, then I held up my hand. "Pastor Mitchell, I said my marriage is not your concern. Derek lied to me, cheated on me, and tried to publicly humiliate me and our daughter. There is no reconciliation. There is only moving forward. But the Bible also says a lot of things about adultery," I interrupted. "Why don't you go counsel Derek about that?" Instead, I walked away before he could respond. Not everyone was unsupportive, though. In fact, most people came around pretty quickly once they heard the full story. Sister Johnson caught me in the parking lot. "I heard what happened," she said, clasping my hands. "Girl, I am so sorry. I had no idea Derek was like that. He always seemed so charming." "They always do," I said. "You need anything?" "Food babysitting. Someone to talk to." I smiled, genuinely touched. "Thank you. I'll let you know." Over the next few weeks, I got dozens of similar offers. Meals dropped off at Grandma Ruby's house, cards in the mail, phone calls from people I hadn't talked to in years just checking in. The community that I thought might reject me. They embraced me instead. And Derek's life was falling apart. Mia found out the truth within days. Someone from church saw them together and told her everything. About the divorce, about the debts, about the fact that Derek didn't own anything, had never owned anything. She kicked him out that same night. So the man who had been living in my house rent-free, driving my car, spending my money, suddenly found himself with nowhere to go. His mother wouldn't take him in. She was too busy dealing with her own problems, bouncing between her other children's houses, because nobody wanted to keep her for long. Tiffany couldn't help. She was barely keeping her own apartment. Derek ended up on his cousin's couch, 46 years old, no job, no money, no car, no prospects. Karma, as they say, is a beautiful thing. But I wasn't done with him yet. The divorce proceedings were moving forward. The custody hearing was scheduled. And I had one more card left to play, something that would ensure Derek felt every consequence of what he had done. Something that would change everything. The courthouse was cold that morning. I remember thinking how fitting that was. Cold and sterile and official. The perfect place to end a marriage that had died years ago. Patricia met me outside the courtroom looking sharp in her navy blue suit, a thick folder of documents under her arm. "You ready for this?" she asked. "I've been ready for months," I told her. "Let's finish it." We walked in together. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge's bench at the front. 2 tables facing it, one for each side. Derek was already there. I barely recognized him. In the 3 months since Zoe's birthday party, he had aged 10 years. His suit was wrinkled, probably the same one he wore to church back when he was pretending to be a successful businessman. His face was gaunt. His eyes had dark circles underneath them. He looked like a man who hadn't slept properly in weeks. Good, I thought. Now he knows how it feels. His lawyer was a young guy, probably court-appointed or the cheapest one Derek could find. He kept shuffling papers, nervously glancing at Patricia's thick folder, like he knew he was outgunned. The judge entered and we all rose. She was a black woman in her 60s, gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, reading glasses perched on her nose. Her nameplate said, Judge Evelyn Crawford. I liked her immediately. We're here today for the matter of Carter versus Carter, Judge Crawford announced, settling into her seat. Divorce proceedings and custody determination. I've reviewed the preliminary filings. Let's proceed. Patricia went first. She laid out everything. 9 years of financial records showing that I was the sole provider. Bank statements proving Derek hadn't made a meaningful contribution in over 2 years. The house deed in my name. The car loans in my name. Every piece of evidence that demonstrated the reality of our marriage. Then she got to the good stuff. Your Honor. Patricia said in addition to the financial abandonment of this marriage, Mr. Carter engaged in a 4-year extramarital affair that resulted in a child. He concealed this child from his wife while simultaneously using her income to support his mistress and their son. She presented the photos, the birth certificate for DJ, the phone records, the text messages from Mama Lorraine calling Mia his real wife. Furthermore, Patricia continued Mr. Carter, with the assistance of his mother and sister, planned to publicly humiliate Mrs. Carter at their daughter's 5th birthday party. He demanded a DNA test in front of 63 guests, accusing Mrs. Carter of infidelity and suggesting that their daughter was not biologically his. Patricia paused for effect. The DNA test confirmed with 99.97% certainty that the child is indeed Mr. Carter's biological daughter. He traumatized his own child in front of their entire community, based on nothing but suspicion and his mother's colorist comments about the child's appearance. Judge Crawford's expression had been getting harder and harder throughout Patricia's presentation. By the end, she looked at Derek like he was something she had scraped off her shoe. Mr. Carter, she said, would you like to respond? Derek's lawyer stood up, fumbling with his papers. Your Honor, my client acknowledges that he made mistakes in this marriage. He deeply regrets the pain he caused his wife and daughter. However, he believes that the proposed divorce settlement is unfair and that he deserves consideration for his years of contribution to the family. What contribution? Judge Crawford asked sharply. According to these records, your client contributed approximately $15,000 over 9 years. That's less than $2,000 per year. Meanwhile, his wife was paying a mortgage, 2 car payments, utilities, groceries, and supporting his mother and sister financially. What exactly did he contribute? Derek's lawyer had no answer. Judge Crawford turned to Derek directly. Mr. Carter, stand up. Derek stood, his legs visibly shaking. I've been doing this job for 32 years, Judge Crawford said. I've seen a lot of divorce cases, a lot of men who didn't appreciate what they had until they lost it. But this is something else. She leaned forward. You had a wife who supported you completely, who paid for everything while you played entrepreneur, who took care of your mother when your own siblings wouldn't, and you repaid her by cheating on her for 4 years, by fathering a child with another woman, by plotting to steal her property and throw her out of her own home. Derek's head dropped. And then Judge Crawford continued, you had the audacity to publicly accuse her of being unfaithful. You questioned your own daughter's parentage at her birthday party. A 5-year-old child. You did that to a 5-year-old child. She shook her head slowly. I've seen a lot of low things in this courtroom. But that might be the lowest. She picked up her gavel. Here is my ruling. The divorce is granted on grounds of adultery and abandonment. The family home at 847 Oakwood Drive is awarded solely to Mrs. Carter as it was purchased with her separate property and maintained exclusively with her income. Both vehicles are awarded to Mrs. Carter. All furniture, appliances, and household items are awarded to Mrs. Carter. Derek's lawyer started to object, but Judge Crawford silenced him with a look. Full custody of the minor child, Zoe Carter, is awarded to Mrs. Carter. Mr. Carter will have supervised visitation only every other Saturday at a location approved by the court. Given his demonstrated poor judgment regarding the child's welfare, I do not believe unsupervised access is appropriate at this time. She continued, Mr. Carter is ordered to pay child support in the amount of $1,200 per month until the child reaches 18. Additionally, Mr. Carter is ordered to repay the $8,000 he withdrew from the joint account without Mrs. Carter's knowledge or consent. But, Your Honor, Derek's lawyer tried again. My client is currently unemployed. He has no means to... Then he needs to find employment. Judge Crawford cut him off. That is not this court's problem. That is his problem. She looked at Derek one more time. Mr. Carter, you are a cautionary tale. You had everything a man could want, and you threw it away for your own selfishness. I hope you learn from this, but frankly, based on what I've seen today, I doubt you will. She banged the gavel. Court is adjourned. I sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. It was over. Really and truly over. 9 years of marriage. 12 years of loving that man. All of it wrapped up in a 30-minute hearing and a bang of a gavel. Patricia squeezed my shoulder. You did it, she said softly. You won. I looked across the room at Derek. He was slumped in his chair, staring at nothing, his lawyer packing up papers around him. He must have felt my eyes on him because he looked up. For a moment, our gazes locked. I expected to feel something, satisfaction, triumph, maybe even a little pity. But I felt nothing, absolutely nothing. He was just a stranger now, a stranger who had worn my husband's face for 9 years. I gathered my things, stood up, and walked out of that courtroom without looking back. It was a new day, and I was finally free. Over the next few months, I watched Derek's life collapse like a house of cards in a hurricane. He tried to fight the child support order, filed an appeal claiming he couldn't afford it. The judge denied it without even scheduling a hearing. Get a job, the ruling said. That's what responsible adults do. So Derek got a job at a warehouse, loading boxes for $12 an hour. The same man who used to brag about his business connections, his networking, his entrepreneurial vision. Now he was lifting heavy packages onto trucks from 6 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, coming home exhausted to a cramped studio apartment that he could barely afford even with his wages. And every month before he could spend a dime on himself, over half his paycheck went to me. Child support, court-ordered, garnished directly from his wages so he couldn't skip payments. I didn't feel sorry for him, not even a little. Mia, his precious girlfriend, the woman he had been planning to replace me with, she disappeared faster than morning fog. The moment she found out Derek was broke, that he owed thousands in debt, that he had no property, no savings, no prospects, she was gone. Turns out she had been with him for his money, or what she thought was his money. Really, it was my money the whole time. Once that dried up, so did her love. Last I heard, she moved to another city, took DJ with her. Derek barely sees his son anymore. A few video calls here and there, but that's it. The child he had been hiding, the family he was building on the side, they wanted nothing to do with him once the truth came out. Karma has a way of balancing things out. Mama Lorraine didn't fare much better. She bounced around between her other children for a few months, wearing out her welcome at each house. Nobody wanted to deal with her constant complaining, her criticism, her demands to be treated like royalty when she contributed nothing. Eventually, she ended up in a small assisted living facility on the outskirts of town. Nothing fancy, just basic care. Her other kids split the cost because none of them wanted her living with them full time. She still badmouths me to anyone who will listen. Calls me vindictive. Says I destroyed her family. Claims she was just trying to protect her son. I don't engage with it. I don't respond. I don't even acknowledge it when people tell me what she's saying. Because here's what I've learned. The opinions of people who tried to destroy you don't matter. Their narrative doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the truth. And the truth is on my side. Tiffany finally paid me back. Not voluntarily, of course. I had to take her to small claims court. But I got a judgment, and her wages are being garnished just like Derek's. It'll take years for her to pay off the full $12,000, but that's not my problem. She doesn't speak to me anymore. Acts like I'm the one who wronged her. Can you believe that? She helped cover up her brother's affair, blackmailed him for money, took thousands from me under false pretenses, and somehow I'm the villain in her story. That's the thing about people who do wrong. They always find a way to make themselves the victim. They twist the narrative until they're the ones being persecuted, the ones being treated unfairly. But I know the truth. And so does everyone else who was in that room on Zoe's birthday. Speaking of the community, the reaction was interesting to watch. At first, people didn't know what to think. Derek had been so charming, so well-liked, so respected at church. It was hard for some people to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the man I exposed. But over time, the tide turned. People started sharing their own stories. Women who had seen signs of Derek's wandering eye, men who had noticed him being a little too friendly with certain women. Church members who remembered small inconsistencies in his stories, things that didn't add up but were easy to overlook at the time. The picture became clear. Derek had been a fraud all along, a charming, manipulative fraud who fooled everyone around him, and once people saw that they couldn't unsee it. Derek doesn't come to church anymore, can't show his face. Too many people know the truth. Too many whispers follow him wherever he goes. That congregation that used to admire him, that used to hold him up as an example of a good Christian man, they want nothing to do with him now. His reputation is destroyed, completely and utterly destroyed. And the best part, I didn't have to do anything to destroy it. He did it to himself. All I did was tell the truth. The truth did the rest. There's a lesson in that somewhere. You can build a whole life on lies. You can fool people for years, but eventually the truth comes out. It always does. And when it does, everything built on those lies comes crashing down. Derek learned that lesson the hard way. I learned it too. But my lesson was different. I learned that I was stronger than I ever knew, that I could face the worst betrayal imaginable and come out the other side intact, that I didn't need Derek or his family or anyone who didn't have my best interests at heart. I learned that I was enough, all by myself. I was more than enough. Moving back into the house was harder than I expected. For weeks I couldn't sleep in the master bedroom. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I set up a temporary bed in the guest room and told myself I would deal with it when I was ready. But then one Saturday morning, Zoe asked me a question that changed everything. "Mommy," she said, looking up at me with those big brown eyes, "is this our house now? Just ours?" "Yes, baby, just ours." She thought about that for a moment. Then she said, "Can we paint my room purple?" I started laughing. Of all the things she could have asked about, she wanted to know about paint colors. "Yes," I told her. "We can paint your room any color you want." That weekend, we went to the hardware store together. Zoe picked out a beautiful lavender for her room. I chose a warm sage green for the living room. We bought rollers and brushes and drop cloths and made a project out of it. Carmen came over to help. So did Grandma Ruby, though she mostly supervised from the couch and told us we were missing spots. Patricia stopped by with pizza and wine. Even some women from church showed up, people I hadn't been particularly close to before, but who wanted to show their support. We painted for 3 days straight. By the end, the house looked completely different. The walls that had absorbed 9 years of lies and unhappiness were covered with fresh colors, new beginnings. On the last day, I finally tackled the master bedroom. I painted it a soft blue like the sky on a clear morning. I got new bedding, new curtains, rearranged the furniture so nothing was where it used to be. When I was done, I stood in the doorway and looked at what I had created. It wasn't Derek's room anymore. It wasn't even our room. It was mine, all mine. That night, I slept in that bed for the first time, and I slept better than I had in years. Zoe started thriving almost immediately. Kids are resilient like that. They bounce back faster than adults, especially when they feel safe and loved. The first few weeks were hard. She had nightmares sometimes, asked questions about Daddy that I didn't always know how to answer. But with time, with patience, with lots of hugs and reassurance, she started to heal. She stopped flinching at loud noises, stopped looking nervously at the door every time someone knocked, stopped asking when Daddy was coming home. She made new friends at school, started doing better in class. Her teacher pulled me aside one day to tell me how much Zoe had blossomed over the past few months. She seems so much happier, the teacher said, so much more confident. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. What I was doing was simple. I was giving her stability, consistency, love without conditions or complications, a home where she didn't have to worry about adult problems or navigate the tension between her parents, just her and me figuring it out together. We developed routines: Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon walks in the park, movie nights on Fridays with popcorn and too much candy. Simple things, but they meant everything. I started taking better care of myself, too. For years I had been running on empty, giving everything I had to Derek, to his family, to work, to everyone except myself. My body had been screaming for attention, and I had been ignoring it. No more. I started exercising again. Nothing crazy, just walks at first, then jogging, then eventually running. I lost the weight I had gained from stress eating. My blood pressure came down. I started sleeping through the night. I went to therapy. Found a Black woman therapist who understood exactly what I had been through: the cultural pressures, the expectations, the weight of being a strong Black woman who was never supposed to break down. She helped me process the betrayal, the anger, the grief, yes, grief. Because even though Derek had been a terrible husband, I still had to mourn the marriage I thought I had, the future I had imagined, the life that never was. But I also had to celebrate the life that was coming, the freedom, the peace, the opportunity to build something new. At work, I got promoted. Turns out when you're not spending all your energy managing a dysfunctional household, you have a lot more to give to your career. My boss noticed the change, said I seemed more focused, more confident, more like my old self. She offered me a senior director position, a 20% raise, a bigger team, more responsibility, but also more recognition. I took it without hesitation. For the first time in years, I was proud of myself. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just getting by, but getting ahead. The money helped too. Without Derek draining my accounts, without his mother and sister constantly needing bailouts, I was actually able to save, to invest, to build wealth for me and Zoe. I opened a college fund for her, started maxing out my retirement contributions, paid off the remaining mortgage faster than scheduled. Financial freedom felt almost as good as emotional freedom. Almost. The sister circle became my lifeline: Carmen, Patricia, Yolanda, plus a few new additions, women I had met through church or work or the neighborhood who understood what I was going through and wanted to support. We met every month, sometimes more often. Brunches, dinners, wine nights, just talking and laughing and being there for each other. They celebrated my victories with me. My promotion, Zoe's first perfect report card. The day I finally paid off Derek's old credit card debt that had somehow ended up in my name. They supported me through the hard times too, the days when I felt lonely, the nights when I missed having someone to come home to, the moments when I wondered if I would ever trust again. "You will," Carmen told me one night when I confessed my fears, "when you're ready, and not a moment before." She was right. She usually was. 1 year after Zoe's birthday party, I threw another party. A fresh start party, I called it. Just family and close friends, the people who had stood by me through everything. We celebrated at the house that was truly mine now, with its freshly painted walls and new furniture and zero traces of Derek left behind. Grandma Ruby gave a toast. To my granddaughter, she said, raising her glass, who walked through fire and came out gold, who faced betrayal with dignity, who chose herself when everyone else was trying to take from her. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Baby, I have never been more proud of you. Your mama is smiling down right now. Your grandfather, too. You showed them what a Carter woman is made of." I cried. Good tears this time, healing tears. And when the party was over, when everyone had gone home, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea and looked up at the stars. I had made it. Not just survived, made it. And the best was yet to come. 1 year later, everything was different. Zoe was 6 now, starting first grade, proud owner of a purple bedroom and a rescue dog named Biscuit. She barely remembered the drama of her 5th birthday party anymore. It was just something that happened when she was little, before life got really good. I was 35, senior director at work, homeowner, single mother, survivor, and for the first time in a very long time, I was happy. Actually happy. Not pretending, not forcing it, just genuinely, peacefully happy. Derek still came around for his supervised visits every other Saturday. He was allowed 2 hours at a public location, usually the park or the library. A court-appointed supervisor sat nearby, making sure he didn't say or do anything inappropriate. He was on his best behavior during those visits, playing with Zoe, buying her ice cream, telling her he loved her. But Zoe never seemed entirely comfortable with him. She went through the motions, said the right things, but there was a distance there, a wall that she had built probably without even realizing it. She knew on some level what he had done, what he had tried to do, and children don't forget that kind of thing, even when they can't fully articulate it. After every visit, she would come home, hug me tightly, and say, "I love you, Mommy," like she was reassuring herself that I was still there, that I wasn't going anywhere. "I love you too, baby," I always told her, more than anything in the world. Derek never remarried, never even seriously dated as far as I knew. The charm that had once worked so well on women had faded along with everything else. He was just a middle-aged man with a dead-end job, an empty apartment, and 2 children who barely knew him. Sometimes I wondered if he regretted it, if he lay awake at night thinking about what he had thrown away, if he understood finally what he had lost. But I didn't wonder for long. His regrets were his business. I had my own life to live. The doorbell rang one Sunday afternoon. I was in the kitchen making lunch for Zoe and me. She was in the living room playing with biscuit cartoons on in the background. I wiped my hands on a towel and went to answer it. There was a man standing on my porch. He was tall, maybe 6'2", well-dressed but not flashy, brown skin, kind eyes, a warm smile. He looked to be around 50 gray touches at his temples, giving him a distinguished look. "Nadine Carter?" he asked. "That's me," I said, immediately cautious. I didn't recognize him. Could be a salesman, could be a process server, could be anything. "I'm Raymond," he said. "Raymond Foster. I believe you know my Aunt Ernestine Bradley, Mother Ernestine, the church elder who had supported me through everything, who had sat next to me that first Sunday after the divorce, who had told me I was doing the right thing when even the pastor was pushing reconciliation." "Of course," I said, relaxing slightly. "Mother Ernestine is wonderful. She's also a meddler," Raymond said with a chuckle. "She told me there was a woman I needed to meet, gave me your address, and told me not to take no for an answer. I had to laugh at that." Sounded exactly like Mother Ernestine. "She speaks very highly of you," Raymond continued. "Says you're the strongest woman she knows. Says any man would be lucky to take you to dinner." I raised an eyebrow. "Did she now?" "She did. But I told her I wouldn't just show up uninvited on a Sunday afternoon and ask a stranger out. And yet I said, 'Here you are.'" He smiled a genuine, slightly embarrassed smile. "Here I am. My aunt is very persuasive." We stood there for a moment, sizing each other up. I liked what I saw. He seemed genuine, respectful, not pushy despite showing up at my door. But I had been fooled before, by a man who seemed genuine and respectful. I wasn't about to make that mistake again. "Look," I said carefully, "I appreciate Mother Ernestine's enthusiasm, but I'm not really in a place where I'm looking for anything right now. I have a daughter, a demanding job, a life that's finally stable after a lot of chaos. I'm not trying to complicate that." Raymond nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. "And for what it's worth, I'm not looking to complicate anyone's life either. I'm divorced myself. 3 years now. I know what it's like to rebuild." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "This is my number. No pressure. If you ever feel like having coffee with someone who understands, give me a call. If not, no hard feelings." I took the card, looked at it. Raymond Foster, it said. Financial consultant. "I own my own business," he added. "Been doing it for 15 years. No debts, no drama, no hidden families." That last part made me laugh despite myself. "That's a low bar," I said, "but I appreciate you clearing it up front. After what my aunt told me about your situation, I figured transparency was important." He tipped his head politely. "It was nice meeting you, Nadine. I hope I hear from you. But if I don't, I wish you nothing but the best." He turned and walked back to his car, a sensible sedan, nothing flashy. He waved once before getting in and driving away. I stood on the porch for a long time holding his card. Was I ready for this? Ready to trust again? Ready to let someone into the life I had worked so hard to build? I didn't know. But for the first time since everything fell apart, I was open to the possibility. That night, after Zoe was asleep, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and thought about the future. For so long, my future had been tied to Derek, to his dreams, his family, his needs. I couldn't even imagine a life without him because he had made himself the center of everything. But now the future was wide open. And it was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Maybe I would call Raymond. Maybe I wouldn't. That wasn't the point. The point was that I could. That the choice was mine. That my life was mine fully and completely for the first time in years. I pulled out my phone and looked at the card again. Then I sent a text, short and simple. "This is Nadine. Coffee sounds nice. Let me know when you're free." His response came back within minutes. "How about next Saturday? There's a great spot on 5th Street. My treat." I smiled. "Saturday works, but I'm buying my own coffee. I don't let men pay for me until I know they're worth it." His reply, "Fair enough. I look forward to earning it." I put down my phone and looked up at the stars again. A year ago, I was standing in my living room watching my husband demand a DNA test for our daughter, watching my whole world crumble. Now I was making plans for a coffee date with a man who showed up with a business card instead of lies, who was upfront about who he was, instead of hiding a second family. Life has a funny way of working out. Not easy. Never easy. But somehow eventually working out. I finished my wine and went inside. Tomorrow was a new day, and I was ready for it. Let me tell you something. When Derek stood up at that party and demanded a DNA test, he thought he was destroying me. He thought he was going to expose me as a liar and a cheater. He thought he was going to take everything I had built and give it to the woman he actually wanted. He froze that day because he realized in front of everyone that he had made a terrible mistake. The trap he set was for me. But he was the one who walked into it. Because I didn't get mad. I got evidence. I didn't scream or cry or beg. I documented everything. I built a case. I prepared for war while he was too busy sneaking around to notice. And when the moment came, I was ready. I'm sharing this story with you today because I know I'm not alone. There are women watching this right now who are living my old life. Women who are paying all the bills while their husbands contribute nothing. Women who are being disrespected by in-laws who live in their houses rent-free. Women who feel something is wrong but don't have proof yet. I see you. I was you. And I want you to know something important. You deserve better. You deserve a partner who contributes, who respects you, who builds with you instead of building on you. You deserve in-laws who appreciate your sacrifices instead of criticizing your cooking. You deserve the truth even when it hurts. If you're in a situation where things don't add up, where your gut is telling you something is wrong, listen to that feeling. Don't ignore it. Don't explain it away. Don't convince yourself that you're being paranoid. Start documenting. Keep records of everything. Bank statements, bills you pay, times he says he's one place but his car is somewhere else, screenshots of suspicious texts, notes in a journal with dates and details. You might never need any of it. Your husband might be exactly who he says he is. I hope that's the case. But if he's not, if the day comes when the truth explodes in your face like it did for me, you'll be ready. Talk to a lawyer. Most of them offer free consultations for situations like this. Find out what your rights are. Find out what you're entitled to if things go south. Build a support system. Friends who will tell you the truth, not just what you want to hear. Family who will be there for you when everything falls apart. Therapists who can help you process the trauma without judgment. And most importantly, know your worth. You are not an ATM. You are not a maid. You are not someone's meal ticket while they chase their dreams at your expense. You are a queen. You always have been. You just forgot because someone treated you like a servant. Let me tell you how my story ends. I went on that coffee date with Raymond, then another, then dinner, then more dinners. He's a good man, a real one. He works hard, pays his own way, and treats me like the treasure I am. We've been together for 8 months now, taking it slow, no rush to move in together or get remarried, just building something real, something healthy, something based on mutual respect instead of lies. Zoe loves him. He never tries to replace her father, just shows up consistently and treats her like she matters. That's more than Derek ever did. I don't know if Raymond is my forever person. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. But I know that I'm in a good place to figure that out. A place of strength, not desperation. A place of choice, not need. Derek is still working at that warehouse, still paying child support out of every check, still living in that tiny apartment alone, wondering where it all went wrong. He tried to reach out a few months ago, sent a long text about how sorry he was, how he made the biggest mistake of his life, how he would do anything to have his family back. I read it once, deleted it, never responded. Because here's the thing. His apology doesn't undo what he did. His regret doesn't heal the wounds he caused. And his promises don't mean anything when his actions proved who he really is. Some things can't be fixed. Some trust can't be rebuilt. Some damage is permanent. And I'm okay with that. I'm more than okay. I'm thriving. My name is Nadine Carter. I'm 35 years old. I'm a senior director at a Fortune 500 company. I'm a homeowner. I'm a single mother raising an incredible little girl. I'm a survivor of betrayal and gaslighting and public humiliation. And I'm standing here today telling my story so that you know it's possible. Possible to face the worst and come out stronger. Possible to lose everything and rebuild something better. Possible to be broken and still become whole again. My husband demanded a DNA test in front of everyone. He froze when the truth came out. But I didn't freeze. I stood tall. I spoke my truth. And I took back everything that was mine. You can too. If this story touched you, if it made you feel seen, if it gave you hope or courage, or just the reassurance that you're not alone, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what part of this story hit you the hardest. Let's build a community of women who refuse to be silenced, who refuse to be disrespected, who refuse to accept less than they deserve, because we are strong, we are worthy, we are more than enough. And nobody, not a cheating husband, not a scheming mother-in-law, not a world that sometimes tries to break us down, nobody can take that from us. Stay blessed, stay strong, stay woke. This is Nadine Carter, and this is my story.